Story 1. If you hear her, don't follow. Camp Moon Valley was once a beloved place for children. Summer bonfires, games by the lake, hikes in the forest. This place was meant to create happy memories. But one day, everything changed. It became the stage for one of the strangest and most terrifying stories in American history. The children who went there in 1998 never returned home. The camp was shut down, the area was fenced off, and the authorities tried to forget what had happened as quickly as possible. But the parents who were waiting for their children couldn't just forget. The case was never officially solved, and to this day, no one knows what really happened that night. Camp Moon Valley opened in 1975. It was located in a forested area, far from the nearest town. Parents sent their children there for summer sessions, and everything was perfect, until 1998. That year, 47 children arrived at the camp, ordinary boys and girls eager to make new friends and have adventures. The camp was divided into 3 groups: eagles, wolves, and lynxes. Each had its own counselor, daily schedule, and program. The counselors were young but experienced. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But here's what's unsettling. Just a week before they disappeared, the children started behaving strangely.
Every night, we hear someone walking around the camp, but the guard insists there's no one there. My tent mate says she saw a girl, but she's not from our camp.
The counselors tried to dismiss it as a child's imagination, until one day, something truly terrifying happened. It happened on July 17, 1998. That evening, everything was normal. Dinner, a campfire, songs. The children went to their cabins around 10 p.m., but at 2:37 a.m., the night duty counselor, Michael Clark, heard a strange sound. He looked out the window and saw that the door of one of the cabins was open. Inside, not a single child was there. Clark woke up the other counselors. They rushed to check the rest of the cabins, and then they saw it. Every bed was empty. All 23 children vanished in a single night. No screams, no noise, no signs of struggle. The police arrived by 5 a.m. They searched the entire camp and the surrounding forest. They looked for tracks, for clues, for anything, but they found nothing. No torn sheets, no open windows, no evidence at all. It was as if the children had simply ceased to exist. But that's not even the scariest part. 2 days later, when all hope of finding the children had nearly faded, a forest ranger discovered a boy 5 miles from the camp. His name was Timothy Cross. He was covered in dirt, scratched up, starving, and terrified. And when they found him, he just kept repeating the same thing over and over.
She took them. She took them. She took them. She took them.
But when doctors and investigators asked him who he was talking about, he couldn't say. He didn't remember. He had no idea where he had been, what happened to the other children, or what had happened to him. The only clue was his last journal entry. Tonight I heard her voice. She's calling us into the forest. 26 years have passed. The children were never found. The camp was shut down, all buildings were demolished, and the area was fenced off. The authorities tried to forget the case, but the rumors never stopped. Who, or what, took the children? How did Timothy survive? Why doesn't he remember anything? Psychologists claimed it was mass hypnosis or a shared psychosis. Ufologists believed it was the work of extraterrestrial forces. Paranormal enthusiasts were certain that some ancient entity had been luring people into the forest for centuries. But one mystery remained unsolved. 10 years after the disappearance, an old camp photograph was discovered in the archives. It showed a group gathering of children and counselors. And in the background, among the trees, a girl was visible, very pale, long hair, a white dress, but no one could identify her. At the time of the photo, there were no girls in the camp who matched that description. If only the children could tell us what happened that night. Maybe we would know the truth. But they will never return. Story 2. The last shift at mine number 12 inches. Mine number 12 in the small town of Montrose, Colorado, was shut down in 1993. Officially, due to the risk of collapse. Unofficially, because one day people simply stopped coming out. The last to enter the mine were 7 miners. They descended on September 14th, 1993, and never returned. 2 days later, search teams explored the tunnels, but found no bodies. Only abandoned helmets, work tools, and radios. Radios that were still transmitting a faint, erratic voice. This case is recorded in police archives as an unexplained disappearance, but those who worked in the mine back then still fear even speaking its name. Mine number 12 was old. It had been in operation since the early 1920s, and over the decades there had been several accidents, but nothing out of the ordinary, until 1993. That night, 7 miners descended into the depths for their shift. Their names were Michael Hayes, Thomas Reed, Jeremy Collins, Victor Nelson, Harry Patterson, Owen Brooks, and Andrew Lawson. Ordinary men, an ordinary job, but their shift was destined to be the last. At 2:45 a.m., the surface radio picked up strange interference. The dispatcher heard heavy breathing, hurried footsteps, and a voice, repeating the same words over and over.
They're here! They're here! We're not alone!
A second later, the signal cut off, and none of the miners were ever heard from again. 2 search teams were sent to find the missing miners. They were sure they would find their bodies, but they found nothing. The mine looked as if it had been abandoned in a hurry, tools left scattered, helmets lying on the ground, even lunch containers left open. But there was no blood, no signs of struggle. However, they did find something. Deep inside the mine, strange markings covered the walls, long, claw-like scratches. They shouldn't have been there, because the mine walls were smooth, carved by drilling machines. And then, the rescuers discovered something even more horrifying. Michael Hayes' journal, which he always carried with him. The last entry read,
The tunnel goes deeper than it should. Tonight we heard someone whispering in the dark. Thomas says it's just an echo, but echoes don't laugh.
After discovering the journal, the authorities decided to shut down the mine. They feared a collapse, or something else. However, in 2012, a group of amateur explorers sneaked inside with cameras. They were convinced they would find traces of the missing workers, but what they recorded became their final discovery. An hour into the exploration, one of the team members, Jackson Moore, suddenly shouted. He heard a voice. The entire group froze. They turned on their recording equipment and captured something deeply unsettling. Amidst the crackling static, a faint voice could be heard.
Help me!
It was a man's voice. It kept repeating, growing louder and louder. But when the explorers called back, the voice suddenly went silent. Instead, they heard something else, a low, rasping, drawn-out laugh. The group immediately ran out of the mine. Jackson Moore refused to give any interviews. 2 weeks later, he vanished without a trace. After that expedition, the mine was sealed once again. But one detail still haunts everyone. Old blueprints show that the mine was supposed to end at the 400-meter mark. But according to the explorers' measurements, the tunnel extends another 50 meters. Someone, at some point, dug it deeper. But why? And why are the voices heard only in that part of the mine? Those who believe in the paranormal claim that the workers found something they were never meant to find. Maybe an old, forgotten tunnel. Maybe a passage to somewhere else. But one question remains unanswered. If the miners disappeared, then who is still calling for help from deep inside the mine?